Hello and welcome. Now we will talk about the institutionalization of business ethics. Voluntary practices basically means beliefs, your values, your voluntary contractual obligations in a business environment. All businesses engage in some level of commitment to voluntary activities to benefit both internal as well as the external stakeholders. In other words, the employees and stockholders of the company, but also the external stakeholders, which could be the government or the union or members of the society who actually go into that organization to shop or to do business with them. Strategic philanthropy basically explains the giving back to the communities and to the causes. So for example, when people like Warren Buffett or Bill Gates or Jack Ma is given billions and billions of dollars to society, they're doing that as part of philanthropy. In other words, these individuals know that the money that they have earned has been because of their hard work as well as some element of luck associated with that. So they're saying, okay, what is the best way that we can spend this money? And so they're giving those billions of dollars to good causes in society. Sort of like Jack Ma mentions, if you make $1 million, it's yours. If you make $1 billion, perhaps it belongs to other people because nobody can ever use that in his or her lifetime in terms of the basic necessities at least. So therefore, you have to figure out different ways of basically using that money to benefit society in some way. So that's where strategic philanthropy comes in. More specifically with regards to businesses, it means investing in certain causes that also are aligned with your brand, with your organization as well. So if you look at companies like Starbucks, for example, they're investing quite often into small farmers' businesses in order for that farmer to be sustainable. So oftentimes, when you read about Starbucks, they're saying that we will pay the small entrepreneurs or farmers who are growing coffee beans a higher amount of money for their coffee beans so they can survive for long term because, again, companies depend on these small entrepreneurs or farmers around the globe to supply them with quality coffee. So there's no reason to rely necessarily on one big chain coffee bean producer when you can rely on many quality-oriented small business entrepreneurs or small business farmers that can supply these, but you have to make sure that they can survive long-term as well. So those types of philanthropies basically means they're strategically aligned with your organization's core business. Voluntary boundary is a management-initiated boundary of conduct in terms of beliefs, values, voluntary policies, and voluntary contract obligations. Core practice simply means you need to help ensure compliance with legal requirements, industry self-regulation, and society's expectations of your business in how you should be conducting business in that city, in that state, in that nation, or in that country overall. Mandated boundary simply implies an externally imposed boundary of conduct based on the relevant laws, rules, regulations, and other requirements that are imposed onto the business, onto any core suppliers, vendors in a given city by the local, state, or federal government and maybe other institutions at a given place in industry. In terms of mandated requirement for legal compliance, keep in mind that laws and regulations are established by governments to set minimum standards for responsible behavior. They are society's codification of what is right and wrong. And what's interesting to note here is that the legal laws or regulations will always be behind because they are often reactive, not proactive. So that's why we expect big businesses to go beyond the law in order to be perceived as ethical and moral in a given society. There are also civil laws, which defines the rights and duties of individuals and organizations, which can include, obviously, the rights and duties of businesses. Criminal law prohibits specific actions like fraud or stealing or theft or securities trade violations, and these criminal laws impose fines or imprisonment as punishment for breaking the law. With regards to core or best practices, remember the voluntary responsibilities for any organizations. A list of them could be: number one, first of all, improve the quality of life and make communities the places where people want to do business, to raise family, and to enjoy life. Make it easier to attract and retain qualified and competent employees and customers, and also hopefully those qualified employees and good customers stay loyal to your organization and stay with you for a long time. Two, reduce government involvement by providing assistance to stakeholders. Three, develop employee leadership skills so they can be good stewards of the organization as well as the communities and customers that they serve. Four, create an ethical culture and values that act as a buffer to organizational misconduct. There's core or best practices regarding cause-related marketing. So the cause-related marketing ties an organization's product or products directly to a social concern through a marketing program. They tend to affect people's buying patterns, and these are often short in duration, so consumers may not adequately associate the business with a particular cause. In terms of strategic philanthropy, synergistic and mutually beneficial use of an organization's core competencies and resources are usually involved in dealing with key stakeholders so as to bring about relevant organizational and societal benefits in communities where the organization is operating. The strategic philanthropy perspective of core or best practices argues that philanthropy should be a long-term issue, and it should have a long-term positive and sustainable impact on your business. Also, it should pertain to the mission and operations of the company. And these strategic philanthropy initiatives should have a strong support from senior managers, which hopefully cascades down to all employees as well. The social entrepreneurship of core best practices emphasizes that entrepreneurs often find an organization for the purpose of creating social value to the community or to a sector of the population. It can be for-profit, non-profit, government-based, or a hybrid of two different categories. Many social entrepreneurs choose to organize their enterprises as non-profits. The major difference between a social enterprise and a non-profit is the use of entrepreneurial principles in business-led strategies to create and bring about positive social changes. Companies engaged in strategic philanthropy will often outsource their philanthropic programs and are partner with other organizations. They're directly able to implement their programs and are organized around achieving societal objectives. So let us summarize the importance of institutionalization in business ethics. We should note that institutionalization helps implant certain values, certain norms, and artifacts in organizations, industries, and in society. Failure to understand these core practices provides the opportunity for your employees to be engaged in unethical conduct or in misconduct. Institutionalization of business ethics has actually advanced rapidly in recent years as stakeholders tend to recognize the need to improve business ethics in every single organization, in every single industry, because one person's misconduct seems to have a negative impact at times on thousands and thousands of other individuals. So one person's behaviors and actions do make a difference, especially if that person is in a position of high rank and power and in positions of high influence. So the institutionalization of business ethics is important because we want everybody to behave with strong ethical standards and do what is necessary to protect themselves and other employees and customers in any given society. In other words, the stronger the institutionalization of business ethics, the more we can live according to the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Remember that the only way to build and advance the muscles of your professional brand image is to chisel it through high standards and ethical behaviors every single day in everything you do. If you want to institutionalize business ethics in your organization, you have to exercise critical thinking, and you have to encourage all your employees to critically think about everything they do to make sure it is aligned with the norms, values, and basically behaviors that are expected in a given culture, as well as your organization's culture. And keep in mind that it requires continuous improvement in reinforcements of good behaviors and punishment of misconduct in order to bring about a culture that you and your employees will take pride in. As I mentioned before, keep in mind that the best outcomes are likely to be realized by those who plan, those who do with reflection, those who check what they did and the results, and those who act as part of a continuous cycle of making progressive improvements toward a culture that you can be proud of, toward a culture that is perceived to be an ethical environment for good work, for performance, and for high level of satisfaction for employees, as well as for customers who come and take pride in the fact that they do business with your organization. So that requires continuous improvement and analysis of everything we do. So we need to exercise our critical thinking skills to create that type of organizational culture. As always, remember that ethical behavior is a skill. So you need to personally and professionally police, evaluate, and improve your own ethical muscles, and encourage your employees to do the same so you all can manage and guide effectively as good leaders in your organization. Good luck.